Hello, how are you? Teacher Shadrach here in a series of Demystifying Computer Project Year 2025, and we are moving on very well together, and we are in the 9th part of our series, and 9th part is a real brainstorming session because this is where I want us to relook at how we are handling revenue, as per this paper, which I have now displayed in front of your screen. Revenue, we have been told in page 3 of your paper, a paragraph starting with each club should carry out one revenue generating activity to support its other club activities. Details of the activity, which includes activity name, date of occurrence, and amount collected, must be provided. For example, debate club, the activity may include organizing debate tournaments or selling club merchandise or hosting fundraising events. Okay, before I go to the next paragraph, which explains how this money is now shared out, the approach of this particular paragraph, it might be diverse. It all depends on how are you figuring it out. One person will just say it's not complicated at all. And actually, it's not. It's not. Because somebody, and this is a correct argument, that we just need to create a table with activity name, date of occurrence, amount collected, and then probably the club involved. I remember that, like, we had done that. We had done that, I think, in part 4 video. But now, personally, I'm looking at this part, the part which says hosting fundraising events. If you look at my database, I have a table that I'm calling activities, and then another table that I'm calling activity contributions. These two tables are, of course, directly linked up, although they also borrow fields from other places. Like, say, let's get to the project so that you try to visualize what I'm thinking, so that I don't know whether there is anybody who is going to think like I am thinking, and this is what will inform the adjustments that I'm thinking of making to my database. I thought of informing you because you are a very critical stakeholder here, and then probably you can even give me some comments at the comment section whether I need to do the adjustments that I'm feeling like changing. So activities is a list of those activities that we may want to have. Okay? I had not thought of these wonderful activities. I just told ChatGPT, generate for me nice club activities that we can engage in, and I gave it the clubs that we are having, and then it gave me a very good list of the activities that we can have: coding boot camp for girls, school talent showcase, and that's a brilliant approach. Anyway, I was even not getting exactly what are these activities. I was thinking of things like just charity work and, shallow things. But now you find I have engaged AI, and it came up with a very good list of activity names. So this activities table is where we are indicating an activity ID, which is generated automatically, which club is engaged, club ID. Remember, this ID during the creation of the lookup column, I told it to show me the club name instead of just the club ID. So club ID is suppressed there. And then we have got the activity name. And then when is the activity? Then amount spent here, there's a field which we can type in the amount that we shall have spent for the activity after the activity is done. Now, I want us to think of an activity like which one? I don't know whether I have got any like that. Let's say, for example, we do put in an activity like the computer club may also want to running a school canteen, running a school canteen, and it will happen on 20th of April 2025. Then, okay, we may not specify the amount we spent, but in case we can just imagine how much we might require for running the canteen. Okay? Now, let's follow this idea now. The 80,000 that I have typed here is not literal money. It's not literal money. And we are, of course, running this canteen because of some amount that we want to raise. There is another agenda. Probably there is another upcoming event which is requiring us to engage in yet an extra activity. It's like a fundraising session scenario where we want to raise as much funds for an upcoming event. Okay? So this event, running a school canteen, will go hand in hand. First, we may engage the club members and other well-wishers in the school, even belonging to other clubs. Hey guys, please assist us with some money. We shall be running canteen. We want to raise some money to run the canteen. And they can just choose, because it's their affair, they may want to first drop some capital, some money to generate enough capital for running the canteen, probably during a fundraising ceremony. Or let's assume it's even the event of organizing a fundraising ceremony. There are the preliminaries. There are the things that we must do before the guests arrive. We need to buy water. We need to cook food for them. And that will require some money. So this is where we can go to the club members soliciting for funds. And also, we can now engage ourselves in another income generating, revenue generating activity like running the school canteen. So this is an activity which we can do a fundraiser, soliciting funds from the club members or the school colleagues, and as well as running the activity or doing the activity. So this is my thought. Why I'm explaining all that stuff is this is my thought. That I have activities contributions table, which is okay, because members can contribute to a certain activity at wish, whenever they wish to. But now again, like the case of the school canteen, you see there will be some money which we shall generate as profit. That once we have purchased the items that we want with our 80,000, then we sell them. We might make 120,000. We can collect a total of 120,000. So we shall have generated some revenue of 40,000. Okay. So how? What is causing me to think of that is to bring a relationship between my revenue table, which is kind of not having a relationship to the activities that I am showing here. This one is like running in isolation. Independently, not connected to the activities table. Okay, but you realize there are some activities which will not only require a fundraiser, but the activity itself will also be an income generator. So This is now where I want to synchronize the two tables to work as one. So I'm going to do some adjustments, guys, and this is why I felt like it is important to include you as a stakeholder. So the first thing first, I'll have to check the relationships that exist within that table, revenue, and the other tables that might be related to it. Therefore, I'm going to database tools and checking the relationships. My interest now is revenue, the revenue table. So I have clicked the line joining. The only field which is related to any other is only club ID, which makes me feel happy that I do not have to do so much adjustments. I want to drop this relationship, so I click on the line, becomes bolded like the way you see it on the screen, and pressing delete, I'm asked whether do you surely mean you want to permanently delete the selected relationship. Oh yes, that's what I want. Then still from the relationships window or from wherever, I can call this table now in design view. I have right-clicked the table and chose design view so that we do some alterations to it to reflect what I am thinking about. Okay. One, I don't require to have a club ID. Why I don't require to have the club ID there is because a club ID is already included in the activities table. So I don't require it here. Okay, so that's a field that I just cleared. Do you want to permanently delete? Yeah, do it. It contains indexes. Do you want? Yes, I want to delete it. I persistently say I want to delete it. Okay, now we cannot reestablish any relationship when we have some records into this table. So I first switch to datasheet view and then do the necessary deletion of the records that exist therein. So I remove the records that we have there. Okay. Then switch back to design view and then watch the modifications. I want to bring on board a field that is going to be borrowed from the activities table. Activities what? Table. Activities table. We are borrowing a field, the primary key, and bringing it in here as the foreign key. So insert a row and then call it activity ID. Activity ID. And then how do we construct it? Lookup wizard. Lookup wizard. There we go. And in this case, we are looking up the field from another table or query. Actually from a table. Which one? Activities TBL. Very well said. And then we drop it in there. And again, because we do not just want to see a number, the activity ID, we also drop in the activity name so that we shall suppress the activity ID, which is the primary key, the key field, and that we are able to see the activity name itself. Okay. Then carry on and the next and the next. You see, at this time, in this step here, there are two things to be done. One, widen the column until you are able to see the entries correctly shown. Entries should be correctly shown. Like I find down there, there are some entries which are hiding themselves. So you entries, can you make yourselves available? The longest entry should be taken care of. Okay. Then hiding the key column means hiding the activity ID, which is the primary key of the activities table. We want to hide it. We want to see these names. They make more sense to us, isn't it? Okay. Yeah, I can see you are nodding your head. Very well. Moving on together. Then enable data integrity. To enforce relationships, we enable data integrity. And then finish. Lookup wizard. The table must be saved before the relationships are created. Delete. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Okay. So now that's the activity ID is giving us now the name of the activity. And therefore, I may no longer require to show revenue activity. Or I can, because I might have used this field somewhere on a form where I can call this activity ID, I just call it revenue activity. There's no problem with that. The computer will be able to know that this revenue activity is also equal to activity ID of another table. So I have removed the duplicate revenue activity, which I no longer require. Revenue date, when did we collect this amount? Amount, how much did we collect? Remark, you may want to indicate some comment, to do some comment there. Okay, now having done that, if I now switch to datasheet view, now you can see that I can be able to save my table, and let's test and see what's the behavior of this new modifications that I have done. Coding bootcamp for girls. The activity itself, when we organized coding bootcamp for girls, we invited schools. Okay, that's the idea. We invited schools, we invited Maseno, we invited Mangu Boys, we invited whatever Pagani, we invited those schools. We invited them, and they paid some little amount to cater for the expenses of the day. Okay, so how much did we earn from the collection? So 50,000. Okay. So under remark, I can say amount collected from various schools. Okay. That is it. That's it. So it is working like that. So this amount that we have here is the amount that is in surplus. Okay, and what do I mean? Let me show you what I mean. Coding bootcamp for girls, also the activity ID, because it's the activity ID number 1. I believe you shall be able to follow this. In the activities table, what is activity ID 1? Coding bootcamp for girls, right? Coding bootcamp for girls. So I am having revenue from two sources. There are those students, membership ID number 1, membership ID number 2, 10, 140, and the like. They have contributed some good amount of money towards supporting that particular activity. They wanted to own up that this is our activity, let us contribute towards it. Okay, so we have got these amounts collected for activity ID 1, and then we have got this amount here, 50,000, which was contributed towards the same activity. Are we together that far? If we are together, say hallelujah. Very good. You are a good, bright student. Now, the main thing now was this. How do we bring these two resources together? We have got our 50,000 here, and then we've got the money that has been contributed by well-wishers, members in the school. Other students have contributed towards this activity. Okay? So how do we bring on board these two amounts? This is where we are going to design a query which joins up these two amounts that we are having from the two resources, from the two areas. Okay? So follow on. We are going to achieve that. We want a scenario where every activity that exists in activity TBL, we want to show how much revenue exists in the revenue table, if at all there is. And then how much revenue have we collected from the source of club members or school colleagues in this case? Okay, so let's carry on. Go to create query. We're gonna use query wizard. We're gonna use what? Query wizard. This query wizard, we are going to have it simple, and therefore simple query wizard is the option. And then which table? The selected table gives us activity ID, club ID. Do we have club name? I don't know. In case we shall need it, we can always add it. Activity name, activity date, amount spent. Okay, let's first deal with that table in isolation. We want to show details for every record, and carry on. And what do we call it? Activities revenue, revenue QRY. Activities revenue QRY. So right now, of course, I can imagine the query just resembles its source, which is activities table. But now we want to add a few things, guys, here. Now this is where we think of how do we bring in the amount that exists in revenue table, and how do we bring in the amount collected in activities contribution. Are we together? Very good. So build in a new column. Now we want to see what is the cumulative total of how much we have collected from contributions. So in short, I'm saying this. I want us to move slowly here so that we do not lose anybody along the way. We want to achieve this, that if activity ID is number 1, for the first activity that we have in the table or in the query, how much total? So it will be the summation of the amounts that are contributed towards activity 1, then activity 2, then activity 3, and so on. Okay, so follow on. We go back to the query that we are designing, and now I want to call the builder. Builder is in the design menu of a query, and then I am already in the new field column, and then I chose show table. No, I don't want to show table. I want builder. Builder ni wewe unajificha. Okay, so here we are. A function that helps us to do a summation from another table based on a particular field and criteria, based on a particular field, table, and criteria, is called DSUM. Everybody say DSUM. Repeat that again. DSUM. We are going to find in our database, we might require to use 1 or 2 scenarios of DSUM or even other D functions. We've got a series of D functions somewhere, so you can just note it somewhere on a piece of paper that there are several D functions that you can use in a database. D functions. So here I've said what we are using. For those who cannot see very clearly, and I believe you are not just using your phone to do this, to see these things. These are not entertainment videos. These are videos that you go pause, do, pause, do, pause, do, pause, play, do, pause, play, do, and so on. Okay, so I have zoomed in so that we type this together. I've said DSUM. DSUM calculates the sum of set values in a specified called a domain. So the domain, not the domain now, the field that we want. So after you type DSUM, guys, let me just also talk about what I'm typing because it might not be clear on your screen. After DSUM, I have opened a bracket, parentheses, and double quotes, and then now I am putting in a square bracket. I'm putting in a square bracket. I may not be remembering the name of the field that I want to refer to in the activity contributions table, which I want to refer to. And remember now, because of the window that is floating above here, I cannot be able to gain access to the activities contributions table. So how can you see it when you are here? You can see it by expanding items under the name of your database, Victory School. And then once you expand the tables, and now check the table that you are calling activity contributions. So there now I am good to go. The field that I want to calculate the DSUM for, or to do a summation, is a field called, somebody guess? You said? Who said? Yes, you said correctly, amount. Amount is the field. And then the field, apart from enclosing it with a square bracket, I also do a closing double quote. So I now have the field within square brackets, and then again whatever is in square brackets is also within double quotes. Then after that, you put a comma, so that you also put in a domain. Domain also should be, if it is a word which has space in between, then you will also use square brackets. But if you have named yours like mine, I don't normally put spaces when I'm naming tables or many fields. I will just type the name of the table, which is the domain now, where we are getting this field from and where the calculations shall be based on, and I'm basing it on what we call activity contribution. So that's the name I'm typing there, activity contributions. Be careful about spellings. Be very careful about spellings. If you have an S, don't use it, whatever you have typed it. Then remember now, okay, I have put a comma, so that now I go to the third part. So that I go to the third part. The third part is criteria. So we have expression, we have domain, and we have criteria. I mean the criteria. Criteria, we want to tell the computer where activity ID, I believe you have that field. Do you have it? If you do, then you can type just like me. If you don't have this field, please type the field name that you have exactly the way you have it. Where activity ID, and the activity ID we are referring to is the one which is in the table that we have selected, activity contribution. So you know the field name that you have there. Where it is equal to, I close the quote for what? Because we want to put a concatenation symbol there where activity ID is equal to close quote. So there is the opening quote here, and then the closing quote after the equals, and then the ampersand, where it is equal to the activity, the field, activity ID, which we have in the query. If you check in the query that we are dealing with, we've got another activity ID. That one I can just double click and it will appear there. And because it's a number, that is how you refer to it. Because it's a number, that's how you refer to it. Whatever that means, it's a story of another day. Hallelujah. Amen. Yes. Okay. Now let's first click OK. We are going back to it again because of one reason. So before I forget, what is this sum that we have accumulated? It is the sum of contributions. So EXPR1, just like we have been saying there before, EXPR1 does not mean so much to the user. So it is sum of contributions. Sum of contributions. Sum of contributions. These are contributions. These are what? Contributions. Contributions. Okay? Yeah. Which come from a particular table. Now we have found that it's only one item, one activity, coding boot camp for girls, where students have contributed towards. All the other activities, we don't have anybody contributing towards that. So where is this sum of contributions coming from? Again, for those who are joining late or those who have not yet understood, we are getting this from a table where we are capturing contributions, and this was based on a particular form that we designed, that we have got a form for contributions. That is when we have got an activity, to contribute for, we choose it up here, and then we can see those who have contributed. So you can see from the form, we have a total of 2,485. That is coding bootcamp for girls. If I choose any other activity, we have not allowed, there's nobody who has contributed to activity number 2. And that is why you find in our query now, here, activity 2 is blank in terms of sum of contribution. An undesirable situation. When you are doing mathematics using Access, and then you try to do some calculations using a null value, because what Access has done, any place where we have no contribution, it has given us a null, N-U-L-L, null value. You're going to encounter some problems. So instead of seeing the null value, the null emptiness, we want to show 0, that we have 0 contributions. Okay, so switch to design view very fast. I know I normally take you slowly, but I take you slowly because I feel I don't need to rush over these things, and then you are left hanging wondering, what did we do, where, why did we do it? I just want us to move slowly, but at the expense of your data, but plus my data as well, isn't it? So let's contribute towards the activity. Okay, so we had said there before, NZ function does what? It returns a 0 or a 0 length string or another specified value when a variant is null. So I'm telling it now, so after I type NZ, just after the colon, I want to open a bracket, and this is our variant. The whole of that expression is our variant, and then so after the whole of the expression, DSUM, blah, 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 until the closing bracket, we put a comma there, and then we put a 0. That's the value we want to show in case the whole of that expression generates a null value. So put a 0 and then close the bracket, parenthesis. Now you'll notice that guys, what we have is any place where there is no contribution at all, we have a 0. We have a 0. Okay, so that's 1. That's only 1. Then revenue 2, the other source of revenue, there is that table which we have said that activity itself, when schools congregate to our school, they'll pay some amount, isn't it? And we have seen that so far schools which congregated, they paid 50,000. We might have 2 records over this matter. We might have this record, 2 records over the same affair. That our secretary first collected 50, and then some other schools came dilly-dallied along the way, and they came later. So we did some more corrections, still within the same day, coding boot camp for girls, and these schools, we collected some extra 12,000 from some schools, which came later, which were late. Our school is never late, which were late. Okay, so we've got 2 records now to check what is the total revenue generated by the activity itself. So from which table? From revenue TBL. So I go back to the query here in design, very fast now, design view, and we go to a brand new column, just like we did for sum of contributions. Now I have over widened this one. This one should not be so widened. How do you expect me to work when I widen like that? So even if I want you to see, I should not over-widen this one. I'm sorry for over-widening it. Okay, now in a new column there, I choose builder. I choose builder once again, and the same function. Which one? The D function that we used. Do you remember it? You said DSUM. Everybody repeat, DSUM function. So once again, let me just type it in capital letters for visibility. And DSUM, in this case, we also expand the items under our database name and then tables, so that we now want to check what we have in revenue TBL. The revenue TBL amount is what we are totaling up. The amount is what we are totaling up from revenues TBL, where revenue activity column is equal to activity ID. And then I say okay. Then we go to datasheet view and check 62,000. Let's confirm. I open revenue TBL. The first activity, which is activity code bootcamp for girls, appears twice, and we have 50,000 added to 12,000. So you get 62,000. So our query is working perfectly. And then in the case of where there is no contribution or there is no revenue collected against that particular activity, we show 0. NZ function. So so we have already tested the query, but there's one more thing that I would like us to do. Once we have calculated the sum of contributions and sum of revenue, remember, sum of contributions is what we are acquiring from the contributors, the club members. And then the revenue is what we are getting from the revenue table as a result of that event itself. It was an income generating event. So we get that amount. Now we want to create a third column here, which shows the total sum of the two activities. So let's go, and we see here we need to be keen, because the behavior might not just be normal behavior as we would imagine. So I'm building a third column. Sorry for not zooming in for us to see. I have gone to a new column in the query builder, and then I have right clicked and chose build. So we have now this expression builder. Now, what's our idea? We want to add sum of contributions. I double click it, and then plus sum of revenue, and then I click on OK. Then call this column, we call it what? We call it, we can call it total revenue, like that. And then we test the query in datasheet view to see the behavior. This is what I was anticipating. Everybody would be amused to see that something like 2485 plus 62,000 is the whole of this figure. And then 700 plus 40,000 is the whole of 740,000, And what is the computer doing? You can, of course, be able to detect that what the computer is doing is what we call concatenation. It is assuming that the sum of contributions is not a value, that is, it's not money, it's text, and also revenue is just text. Plus, so this text plus this text, a text plus a text gives you a concatenated text. So plus can also be used in the times of concatenation. So here we must be very careful, friend. How do we handle that scenario? A very ugly scenario. And this is what you might encounter as a database designer. sometimes you are stranded what you should do. So I'm going back to sum of contributions field, the column that we created an expression to do sum of contributions. And so the computer is generating the actual sum, yes, but now that sum is being represented in form of text. So there is a way of forcing a text which we feel this is not text, this is a number. We will now want to force it now to become a number. So what we do is before our NZ function, we introduce VAL. Everybody say VAL, value, which returns the numbers contained in a string expression, blah, 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 blah. So VAL, open a bracket, and then at the end, kabisa, you close the bracket. VAL, in other words, we are converting the string generated by the previous expression. Now we are making it to be a number. We do the same also to the other part of, to the other result of sum of revenue as well. So just after the colon, there, I say VAL, open bracket, and then I close the bracket at the end of the expression. So that we now, well, let's test, we see whether that works the magic that we expect. Oh, wow. Now, 2485 plus 62,000 gives us 64,485,000 shillings. So that is now the desirable result. Okay. Now, we also have another consideration to make, that we have a column where I had indicated in my case that there is the amount that we have spent for this particular activity or event. So that amount that we have spent minus the total revenue, or rather the other way, total revenue minus the amount spent should give us the surplus. Surplus is what we would call profit from this particular event, a profit from this particular event. So let's again calculate the surplus, surplus cash. In a new column, I'm right clicking to choose build again. I now know you are becoming familiar to these things. So I say, and remember, every time you want to come to the expression builder, always remember to update the changes you have done. Control S, so that the new fields that you have created, like now the total revenue, I am seeing it here because I have already saved it in the previous step. So total revenue minus amount spent gives us the surplus, if there is a surplus. So this one, we are going to call it sorry, we are going to call it a profit or a loss. Profit or loss. If you were in business, you could understand very easily those terminologies. So you see now, in this case, 64,485 minus 26,500 here gives us the amount that we have for the first record, 37,985, and so on and so on and so on. So in case you find an abnormality and an abnormal behavior somewhere, just remember the VAL function, remember the NZ function, and we have also learned how to use the DSUM function. Okay. This query is going to be very, very important. It is actually like the thing that we must underscore in our project. That this is where now we are going to be answering the question, how much have we collected from a particular club in this particular year? And then what are the expenses incurred by that particular club? Then we get the difference between the two. After we get the difference, now we can know this club A has given us this much, has gained this much, the school should chip in this much, and we are going to balance the mathematics at the end of the year. So this query, approach it carefully. If you have done like my the way I have approached my scenario, then it becomes very easy for you, because you can just try to do the fields that we have done here, play around with them until you get this kind of a query. That's your activity. Come up with a query that consolidates the amounts that we have earned from every activity. If that is not the approach that you have used, then you can do a summary query. When you initiate Query Wizard, you can show, there is a step where you can show details for every record. Or you can generate a summary query. So either way, it is you to choose which way to go. If you have approached it like mine, then that's the procedure that is advisable for us to follow. So we may have to create forms for this query, reports thereafter. I know we are now going almost close, very close to reports. Otherwise, for now, practice and do this query. Do it, guys. It is going to add value to the scores of your project. Thank you very much.